Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So I'm just starting because my computer is full screen. So maybe I won't be able to quickly see the messages if there's any technical problem. So just requesting the organizers, Sheikh Hasnain and Brother Muhammad Ali, that if something is not wrong, they can ping me. If something goes wrong, they can ping me on WhatsApp. So I have my WhatsApp next to me, so I'll keep checking. If there's a technical error, then I'm aware quickly. Then I can switch back to the I can stop share screen and video, so it's easier to continue. So I welcome you all the every single person who's joined this session we have for the preparation of the holy month of Ramadan. Month of Ramadan is the season of blossoming. So I want to begin my discussion with two narrations that we have from the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in the first narration, I'm sure you must have seen these narrations before, but it's good to go through them, and sometimes it's good to make connections between these narrations. So the first narration says, وَتَعَلَّمُوا الْقُرْآنَ فَإِنَّهُ رَبِيعُ الْقُلُوبِ, that learn the Quran. Why? Because it's the spring of the heart. It causes a person's heart to blossom and uh, turn into that fresh state. Now, there's another narration again from the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he says, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ رَبِيعٌ وَرَبِيعُ الْقُرْآنِ شَهْرُ Ramadan. So these two narrations, they connect very beautifully, because the second narration says that everything has a spring. So this material world, it has a spring. I mean, there's a season when the dead earth grows again and there's fresh life. In the same manner, Quran also has a spring. So it also has a season in which it's fresh, we can benefit more. And that spring season of the Quran is the holy month of Ramadan, which is approaching us. So almost a week, less than a week remaining, and shall be entering this blessed month. So this tells us that this is a special month. It's a month of the Quran. And if we learn Quran and if we allow Quran to enter our heart, that's going to make our hearts come alive. And this is what we want. We all want to live quality lives. And this is a pursuit that every human being undertakes, even without knowing that he's looking for that successful life, which the Holy Quran calls it as hayatun tayyiba, a pure, a goodly life. And this is how we are created, this is how we are made. That the verse of the Holy Quran, وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. So this is how we human beings are, that we have that extreme desire and love for khair and goodness. We want to live quality lives. You see, every single pursuit in our life is to go towards a better and a better life. And it doesn't matter which religion you follow, every single person on this earth is looking for something better, a stable life, a goodly life. But the question is that how many people actually know that what is true life? What does it mean to live life of highest quality and something which is fulfilling and truly enjoyable? Usually, what happens is that people are trapped in their own thoughts and imagination. So they grow up with a certain way of living, they get used to it. And once a person has set in a certain way of life, then coming out from that and imagining a life higher than what a person is already living almost becomes impossible. So you can see in the on the screen this picture that a person is trapped and bound by his own thoughts and his own imaginations. And this would be one of the big problems that the prophets, the divine guides would face. That when they would invite people to something higher, they would tell them that what your experience is okay, but there's something higher. You're selling yourself for cheap, then they wouldn't understand. So this verse of the Holy Quran, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ وَإِلَى الرَّسُولِ. So when they would be told that come higher, ta'alaw, towards what Allah and His Prophet are inviting you towards. What would be their answer? قَالُوا حَسْبُنَا مَا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا. They would say that no, we are fine. Our lives are okay. We don't need anything more than what we are enjoying. I mean, people's mind, they get shut. They cannot see beyond. Then the Quran says, وَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. Do they still want to follow their forefathers, their society? They want to go with the flow, even if that's not the right path. There is a better path. There is a more complete path. Maybe the path on which they are is path of deviation. Who knows? And therefore, and this is a problem that we all are going to face. That because we are so used to our own life and our own batini and hidden states, that even to understand what others are experiencing becomes almost impossible for us, the human beings. So it's like this. So I have lived my life 30 some years, and I'm used to so many things. Now, for me to imagine that someone might be living a much more better life, something which is much more fulfilling, it becomes so difficult to find out. And what happens in the end is that I judge people by their zahir. I look at a person and say, oh, he, mashallah, he has money, for example, or he has other material blessings, or for example, he has these facilities, a very good job. There's so many things that come in our eyes, we can see them, but we have no idea about his true quality of life that he's experiencing. Why? Because that's hidden. It's like we see the tip of the iceberg and we don't know what's hidden underwater. And it leads to issues like we have misjudgments regarding people. And we end up doing the opposite. So, what happens is that we see a person, we think he's really happy, but in his batin, in his inside, in his soul, he's suffering, he's not happy. You are more happy, in fact. He has so much money, but you are more happy than him. But you end up thinking the otherwise. And also the opposite happens. You see a person and you think that, oh, how unfortunate he is. He's missing so many things in life. For example, he was born in such a country, like a backward country, economically not so successful. They have problems in their life. Yes, it's all true. You can see in that zahir. But who knows? Maybe inside, in their personal lives, they are going through a very fulfilling experience. So, this is something very important that sometimes we should think and sit and imagine that those people who are the most successful people and who lived the lives of highest quality and pleasure, namely the Holy Prophet of Islam and the Ahlul Bayt, alayhimussalam. So these are the people who, despite all the difficulties they faced, they had the best of the lives. They lived in the most fulfilling manner. So now, and especially given that this month of Ramadan is approaching, we should see that how Allah's close servants, awliyaullah, the imams would spend their time. It would be a feast for them. They'd be so happy. It's there in the narrations that when the holy month of Ramadan would arrive, Rasulullah would be enter in another state, like he'd be in a different world. He'd be enjoying so much. And then in the last 10 days, he would stop everything and he would go sit in masjid in itikaf. You would love it so much. So it shows something that there is a quality of life and there is a pleasure that they're experiencing that it's difficult for me to even imagine that what that means. So this is a very important thing, especially now that the month of Ramadan is approaching, is that what is that true life and true pleasure that these awliya, these close servants of Allah experience, and maybe that's missing in my life, and maybe that's what I need. So this verse in the Holy Quran, which talks about this idea of hayatun tayyiba, which I just mentioned. So it says that man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha. It's one of those very beautiful verses of the Holy Quran. It says, whoever performs good deed, be it a male or a female, and this is one of those verses where it explicitly mentions both the genders, and it is very well known that everything in the Quran is addressed to both the genders except those places where it's explicitly talking to a specific gender. So all the addresses of the Quran, the addressees of the Quran are all the human beings. And it's a simple thing in any language. You don't have to every single time keep saying that this is for men and women. No, it's a known thing that when a certain expression is mentioned, it's for both the genders. But in some places in the Holy Quran, there's an explicit mention of both genders. This is one of those. So whoever performs good deeds, be it male or female, and وَهُوَ mu'min, and they have iman, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. Allah is going to give these people a new life. And again, the Mufassirin have said that this hayatan tayyiba is in this world. Why? Because the verse continues and says, وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And the reward which they're going to get in the hereafter is there. That's a separate thing. No, we are going to give them a new life in this world. So lives of people change if they are able to connect themselves to this hayat tayyiba, this pure life which Allah has promised. And then the way and the path is mentioned in this verse itself, that amal saleh, good deeds, and iman, having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his religion. So also what makes this month of Ramadan that is approaching us, and we should prepare ourselves to benefit from this. It's something that really needs preparation. It's not an ordinary event that's going to happen. And what makes it even more non-ordinary is the ongoing events that has grappled the entire world. So I mean, we here in Iran, we went through the peak of the coronavirus a few weeks ago. Alhamdulillah, things are starting to settle down here now, and things are, I mean, it's Alhamdulillah well under control. The number of cases are decreasing and it's stable right now. But in your societies where you live across the world, especially in Western Europe and in North America and in some other countries, it's still a big challenge that the society is facing, this coronavirus. So, this whole discussion of what this virus is and what it means and what could have been the possible causes behind this, the different theories that exist, how it's going to impact the world after the crisis is over, that's a whole separate discussion. What concerns us now is that whatever happens in our lives and around us, we should always be ready to take ibrat from it, to learn lessons from this. And that's why the Holy Quran even says, فَأَعْتَبِرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ, that, oh, the people of insight, take ibrat, learn, observe the things that are happening around you. And this has told us many things, this coronavirus. It has reminded human beings of their weakness. It has reminded us, it's a wake up call. You can see this nice, someone is putting this graffiti, this thing on the wall, that yes, it is a wake up call. It's a call for us to realize that we need him. We need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's our master, he's our Lord, and he's waking us up. And it's a very good time to even use these events to tell us that this month of Ramadan, I'm going to remember Allah more. Yes, there's lockdown. There won't be most likely any programs in the mosque or in the local Islamic center, but it's such a good opportunity to have that private and special time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So recently in one of his speeches, Ayatollah Khamenei said this, that because even in Iran, it's unlikely that we'll be having gatherings and joint events, religious gatherings. So he said that, but this is an opportunity for all of us to benefit from these nights and have that private time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a lot of settling of accounts that we need to do. We need to go and talk to Allah. It's a need that we have. So let this month of Ramadan be a different one. There, if we are prepared, and this session is there so that we all, including myself, everyone who's listening, we are all better prepared to enter this month. So two things are needed to make a difference in this month of Ramadan to change ourselves. One is that we should be prepared. We should know how to approach it. And second, it takes the resolution that yes, I want to do it. I want to approach it in a different manner. I don't want it to let pass just like the other days of my life pass. And then once these two things are there, you'll see that how easy it is. And Allah's help will come, the Ahlul Bayt will help, and inshallah we'll all be able to benefit the most from these months. And therefore, it's also mentioned in our narrations. Again, the third narration of today's session, again, that we have from the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereby he says that لا يكونن شهر رمضان عندكم كغيره من الشهور. So he said that let it not happen that month of Ramadan for you is like other months. No, the difference should be felt. So the Holy Prophet is inviting us, is urging us, or in fact, he's commanding us to do something different in month of Ramadan. Month of Ramadan has to be different at any cost. We cannot afford to continue our regular routines the way we do throughout the year. And by the way, this coronavirus has taught us that, I mean, sometimes you have to change your routine. I mean, and it's initially, I'm sure all of you felt this, that when lockdown started and you have to adjust to the new life, but you go a few days into it and it becomes so easy. So then same thing holds true for the holy month of Ramadan, that the Holy Prophet is telling us that فَإِنَّ لَهُ إِنَّ اللَّهِ حُرْمَةً وَفَضْلًا عَلَى سَائِرِ. It's a special month, it has a special sanctity, it has a special distinction over other months. So this is very important for us, that it's a time for us to make a change. We need to think about making a change. So what are we going to discuss? So this keep this background and these introductory things that I mentioned in mind. So our aim is that in this session, we are going to go through some things that are going to help us to experience this month of Ramadan in a different manner, in a higher manner. Inshallah, we are able to get a share of that true life, that hayatan tayyiba, which the Holy Quran has promised the believers. So, there are two parts of my discussion that I'm going to cover. The first part of my discussion is regarding the adab and the etiquettes of fasting. Okay. So I'm going to explain a bit about this. So, and the second part is going to be the ahkam or the legal boundaries. Although, given the limited time I have, and I just saw that there's a lot of ahkam that are there in the slides, let me see if I can cover all of it. If not, I'll select those important parts, and then, inshallah, the slides will be shared. The ahkam are quite, most of them are self-explanatory. You should be able to quickly go through them, and those parts which we won't be able to do because there are many slides and time is going to be limited. So, so these are two things that we need to know. So, this is a very, very interesting concept in Islam, that everything that Islam has asked us to do, it defines legal boundaries for it first, and those are the ahkam. So you can see on the screen that everything has a legal boundary. These are the red lines. So if you want to do this action, come inside these red lines first. So these are the ahkam. So it's like, I mean, the example you can give is like, if you want to play football, you have to be in the field, right? You can't be in the stadium sitting on the chairs and say that I want to sit there and play my game. No, it doesn't work like that. You're outside the stadium and you want to play. No, if you want to play football, if you want to achieve something in sports, you have to first enter the ground. So, similarly, if we want to achieve maximum from the month of Ramadan and fasting, then the first thing is that we have to enter these red lines. We have to keep these boundaries, and these are the ahkam. But is that enough? So, is it enough that a football player enters the legal boundaries of the field, enters the ground, and then he doesn't know how to play? He doesn't know what are the best tactics to use. He doesn't know where he stands. He doesn't know how to approach and pass and shoot, or he knows it in a very weak manner. Okay, he's going to lose out. Yeah, he's going to play, he's going to enjoy a bit. It's not the case that he won't be part of the game. So this analogy is very, very interesting, that ahkam. So anyone who's keeping these red lines and boundaries in mind is definitely going to benefit. He's in the field and he's playing, he's doing what Allah is wanting him to do. But every single person who's fasting by keeping in taking care of ahkam is going to get the most out of these fasts. The answer is no. So I'm sure you must have heard these riwayat. So there's a narration from Amirul Mu'mineen whereby he says that there are people who gain nothing from fasting except hunger and the other difficulties. Of course, the fast is accepted in terms of ahkam, people who have fasted, but they couldn't get more. Why? Because they didn't know the etiquettes, they didn't know the adab. So, Allama Tabatabai in Tafsir al Mizan defines adab, so it's a plural of adab. So adab is an etiquette. So usually you use it in a plural form, even in English you say etiquettes. So what is adab? So in Urdu also in other languages we use this, right? It's there in our culture. Like someone is ba adab, someone has adab, he's well mannered etiquette. So Allama Tabatabai defines it very interestingly in an interesting manner. He says that adab applies for every single thing you do in your life. It's not just to do with religious duties. Adab means that any work or responsibility you undertake, you do it in the most effective and the most beautiful manner. So that's the adab of that thing. So even for fasting, there are some adab, there are some things that are very crucial for getting the maximum benefit from the fasting. So, uh, and if we have these two things together, if we know the adab and we are maintaining those adab and etiquettes in the month of Ramadan. And of course, we're all going to observe those legal boundaries and the boundaries of ahkam. Inshallah, we'll be able to get the maximum benefit from our fasting. And really, on the day of Eid, we'll come out to be people who would be successful and who would be truly celebrating, inshallah. So let me again, I don't want to prolong my discussion too much. So the adab discussion is going to be very brief. So maybe it will take me another 15 minutes to go through the adab discussion. And then the rest 45 minutes would be regarding the ahkam. Of course, I won't be able to cover everything, but inshallah, whatever I cover would be good, inshallah. So I'm just taking a 1 minute break just to see that if anyone has any questions, if there are no technical issues, if is just checking that everything is fine. If there are any questions, I'm just pausing for 1 minute. That's it, so that you also get a break from listening, because listening continuously for 1.5 hours is quite can be quite tiring. So, any questions, any comments you want to make about the discussion so far? Uh, okay, so it looks like everyone is okay, and I think so. I'm just continuing. Please, if there is anything, any questions, I mean, you can keep typing them. Inshallah, we'll have a bit of time at the end if there are any questions generally. So, so I gave you your break of 1 minute. So, and, okay. Let's continue. So let's begin a discussion about the adab or the etiquettes that are there for the month of Ramadan. So, etiquettes of fasting in the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. So I'm just going to discuss 5 things very briefly, and inshallah, then we'll move on to ahkam. So the first adab or the first etiquette and the most important thing, or if we want to fast in a goodly, beautiful manner, so this is how adab is, right? Allah Tabatabai is defined. So if I want to beautifully fast and get the maximum out of it, then one of the adab or etiquettes of this month is that this is an opportunity for me to have that extra emphasis on staying away from haram. And brothers and sisters, this is key to spirituality in the school of Ahlul Bayt. This is the most important thing that a person can do. So and especially I say to those people, the younger generation, and especially all of you who are living in surroundings where there can be temptation, there can be sins. the society, the larger society, might be going in the wrong direction. There will be distraction. So it becomes very, very important for us to resist these temptations and stay away from haram at all costs. So look, the fasting is that ibadah that is going to come and even going to make some halal things haram for you. So it's actually setting the bar a bit higher. So in your regular days, you have things that are haram and things that are halal, and Allah asks you to stay away from haram. So now what happens in the month of Ramadan is that Allah is raising the bar. So some of the halal things, Allah is bringing it under the category of haram during that fasting time. So for example, you can't eat and drink. Even the halal things you can't eat and drink. In the other days, they're halal, but in the month of Ramadan, you can't eat. Why? It's a way of telling us that look, you need to control yourself. You need to learn to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to learn, we all need to learn to stay away from haram. So when the bar is set high in the month of Ramadan and there is divine help, so the angels are going to help us, the satans and the shayateen are chained, becomes easy to stay away from haram. So this is a very, very good opportunity for all of us to review our lives and see if there are any traces of haram things in our lives. And believe me, sometimes a person is not careful. He carefully looks through his life, he reviews it, he says that, oh, I had been doing this thing which is haram unknowingly. I didn't realize. I was doing something, for example, that was hurting my parents. That's haram. Doing something which was not wajib or necessary, and that's hurting the parents. And there can be many, many other examples. And the interesting thing is that this famous khutbah which Rasulullah gave uh, before the month of Ramadan, khutbah Sha'baniyah, where he describes the fadail of the month of Ramadan. It's a very beautiful khutbah. If you get a chance, definitely go through it and at least go through the translation. It's very beautiful. So in that khutbah, something interesting happened. So the Holy Prophet is on the mimbar. He describes the fadail of the month of Ramadan. And then a point come when he's finished speaking, then Amirul Mu'mineen stands up from the crowd. He's sitting, he's attending that khutbah, and he asks a question. And this is the question. So see, Amirul Mu'mineen is asking the Holy Prophet, Ma afdalul a'mali fi hadha shahr. Oh Holy Prophet, what's the best action in this month? See, the best action means the best etiquette, the best adab. That's going to give you the maximum result. See the reply of the Holy Prophet. فقال يا أبا الحسن أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر الورع عن محارم الله. He says that the best action in this month is to stay away from haram. Al-wara and maharimillah. And then the story continues. The narration says that thumma baka. Then the Holy Prophet looks at Amirul Mu'mineen and starts weeping. And then Amirul Mu'mineen asks him that ma yubki, what makes you cry? And that's the place where the Holy Prophet starts describing the martyrdom of Imam Ali for Imam Ali in his presence. So I'm sure you must have heard this. So this is that same riwayat where the Holy Prophet is telling that I can see that day that on the 19th of this month, Ashkal awwalina wal akhirin will strike you with his sword and will martyr you. So this is the first and the most important thing that we need to focus as the adab and the etiquette of this month. That at any cost, I have to keep myself away from haram. Of course, it needs increased self attentiveness. We need to be more aware of our actions in this month. The second thing is the connection with the Quran. This is the month of the Quran, and one of the most important adab of this month is that this month is my opportunity to strengthen my connection with the Quran. So you can see in the picture, I mean, we're going through this corona lockdown and there's shortage of ventilators, people, because it attacks your lungs, and then um, people need to be on oxygen ventilators to survive. Okay. In the same manner, we need the Holy Quran to survive. Our spiritual life depends on it. If we lose connection with the Quran, with the Ahlul Bayt, with the teachings that are there, it's going to starve our souls. It's going to suffocate our souls. So this is a connection that we need. And again, one of the important things that we need to do is that let's see how those people who lived that hayat tayyaba, that highest quality of life, how their relationship with the Quran was. So there's this very beautiful narration in Usulul Kafi about our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. So he says about himself, and this shows that how their connection with Quran was, and how much they're enjoying their lives. It was full of pleasure. Month of Ramadan was like the best time for them. So this narration describes his relationship with the Quran. He says, لو مات من بين المشرق والمغرب لما استوحشت. He says that if every single person in the east and in the west and in between them dies and leave this world, and I'm alone in this world, لما استوحشت. I wouldn't feel lonely بعد أن يكون القرآن معي. Why? Because Quran is with me. I mean, it's a strange relationship. I mean, if I mean, just imagine that your city is emptied of people and you're the only person in your entire city. So a deserted city with you living there, it's terrifying. You feel lonely. You feel, I mean, you're looking for escape. Imam Zainul Abidin says that no, I'm not terrified, or I won't feel lonely. I won't have that wahshat and that anxiety. Why? Because Quran is with me. My best friend, my best companion is with me. And then the narration says that وَكَانَ إِذَا قَرَأَ مَالِكِ يَوْمِ الدِّينِ يُكَرِّرُهَا. So in the mustahab prayers, when Imam Zainul Abidin would reach this verse, Maliki Yawmiddin, he would repeat it. Hatta kada ayyamut. He would repeat this verse so much that his state would change to an extent that he would be as if he is close to death. That's how much impact the Quran would have on him. So this is an opportunity for us, that one of the most important adab of this month is that our connection with the Quran should go to next level. And there are many riwayat that talk about this. The third adab, or the third etiquette of this month, which has to be continuously there from beginning of the month till the end. So this is for the entire month. Staying away from haram, focus on that entire month. Connection with the Quran for the entire month. And inshallah, we should continue after the month of Ramadan, but the manner in which and the quantity will definitely change. So I'll speak about it in a while. So the third thing is dua and connection with Allah. And again, we all need it, and especially in these times when a lot of the people around the world are suffering. So it's not just the people who are actually have this disease. Yes, they are definitely suffering. They're losing their loved ones. People are losing their loved ones. But imagine the impact it has had on the global economy. It has led to millions and millions of people losing jobs. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of economic problems that a lot of people are facing. So all of this is opportunity for us, that at least Allah has given us those basic necessities. He has provided us. Of course, even the other people should be given their basic necessities, and a part of it is our duty. So again, this shouldn't create a doubt that why Allah hasn't given them. No, Allah has given them as well. Would it not be for a group of greedy, capitalistic minded people who hoard wealth, we wouldn't have any person poor. So again, you can't blame Allah for the unfortunate situation, the world system, the way it works, it is now. A big part of it is our own fault, the fault of the human beings. But at least the blessings that we have, it's a time to realize that we are beggars in His presence. We have nothing of our own. So this verse of the Holy Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, antumul fuqara'u ila Allah, wallahu huwal ghaniyul hamid. So very beautiful verse. So it says, O people, again, this is the verse that's addressed to every single human being. It's not Ya ayyuhal mu'minun. It says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, O human beings, antumul fuqara'u ila Allah. You are beggars, you are fakir in Allah's presence. Not only for money and wealth we depend on Allah, for every single thing. Starting from our very existence, we are dependent on Him, to even the smallest of things, we need Him. And this is a month to get that connection and realize that where do we stand in relation to Allah. So it's a month of dua. There are beautiful duas that are there. There are the special nights, Layali ul Qadr. There's so many things going on in month of Ramadan. Of course, the details would need like there are more details about how, what are the du'as and all that, but it's not for this session. The fourth adab, or the fourth etiquette for getting the maximum benefit from the month of Ramadan is, in Arabic, it's called muwasat, which means empathy and compassion for people, feeling other people's pain, helping them out, like burning from inside, looking at other people's problems. So there's a whole range of people around us who are suffering, who are in difficulty. So they're orphans who are suffering, they need empathy and compassion. There are poor people who need help. There are people who are going through problems. I mean, I can speak a few words and I can solve his problem. And this special month is there for this kind of thing. So the same, the khutbah Sha'baniyah, which I referred to, in that there is a big portion where the Holy Prophet is just talking about how to help people and how much reward is there for helping people and showing compassion and mercy to others, being lenient to them in this month. So I just want to read a small portion. So it says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, man fattara minkum sa'iman mu'minan fi hadha shahr. So if anyone gives iftar to a believing person who's fasting in this month, كان له بذلك إن الله إتق نسمة. So the reward for that is equal to the reward of freeing a slave. Freeing a slave is not a simple thing. I mean, the slaves would be a very expensive entity in those days. So you just give someone iftar, feed them, this is the reward. وَمَغْفِرَةٌ لِمَا مَضَى مِن ذُنُوبٍ. And all the past sins are forgiven. And there's strange the incidents, very interesting from the lives of the Imam. So very briefly, our fourth Imam, it's said in that when this month would come, he would be extra lenient on his workers. So there would be workers and servants and slaves in his house who were doing different works that they would be assigned to. Imam would be extra lenient to them. If they would commit mistake, he wouldn't do anything. He would be very lenient. And there are strange things that on one of the nights, I think the night of Laylatul Qadr, he would call all the slaves to them and remind them of the mistakes they did in this month and to tell them that he would call out to Allah and say that, look, oh Allah, I have forgiven these people who are under me, you forgive me. And he would be weeping and he would be crying. It's very strange. Imam is saying that, look, these people are under me, they made mistakes and I'm forgiving them. And you are my master, I'm your slave. So because I'm being merciful to others, you be merciful to me. So Islam is a religion that teaches us that if we don't fix our social, family, community relationships and don't have that empathy, compassion, and love, then Allah's mercy is also going to stop. Because Allah loves a society, a community of believers who are well bonded with each other. And the last point is that, of course, balance is the key. So the different amal and the things that are there, they need to be done in a balanced manner. So what we need actually is, I'm finishing my adab section, and I still have 45 minutes, so it's not bad. Is that we need a balanced timetable specific for the holy month of Ramadan. It's absolutely necessary. I need to plan. In any case, believer is someone who should have a planned day. He should have a timetable for his life. But timetable for the month of Ramadan would be unique, would be different from all other months. Why? Because the Holy Prophet has told us that let it not pass like other months. So automatically the amount of time you give for Quran would be more, for du'as would be more, for muasat, helping, family meets, silatul rahim, helping in community if there are ways of doing it. So you will have to chart out all these details, that how are you going to and how I'm going to spend my month of Ramadan. So it's going to be slightly different from other months based on these few points that I mentioned. So this was first part of my discussion. Of course, I apologize that this has taken half of our time. So we are midway. So we start at 7:30. It's 8:15. Okay, I'm mentioning by time here. So I think there it should be 11:45 in Toronto at least. So we are midway. I could have spent a lot of time on ahkam, and that is definitely needed and good because ahkam define the boundaries. If you miss out something on the ahkam side, you're outside. Like, I mean, you're not part of the game. You're not inside. So ahkam is very important. But I felt that sometimes these other things are left out or they're not emphasized enough. That ahkam is definitely needed, but it's not enough. Inside the ahkam, there are so many things that we need to do to get the maximum result from whatever we are doing. And in this case, the month of Ramadan that we are going to inshallah enter. So, again, I'm going to take a 2 minute break just for you to give you a bit of respite from listening. And again, I can, if there are any questions, you can type any comments to make. So I also get a break from speaking. So it's good for me as well. Then, inshallah, the remainder of the thing will quickly go through ahkam. I know that I won't be able to go through everything, but inshallah, I'll choose and try and go through the most important portions that we have, and the rest you can see in the PowerPoint, which will be shared on the website, inshallah. So, any questions, any comments, please? So, no questions can possibly mean one of the two things. I mean, either it means that everything was so clear that there are no questions, or nothing was clear. So it can be one of the two extremes. I'm hoping that it's the first one. Okay. So there are some ahkam questions. So yeah, which is good. Yeah. So this question is going to come. Um, so inshallah, I'll do it in the ahkam section. Yeah, you can write your questions. I still have 1 minute, so I'll start my next section in 1 minute. Even if there are any comments you want to make, say anything. I mean, it's an open chat. You're free to say things, questions, any comments. Shall I'll continue in 1 minute if that's fine. So this question which is there, inshallah, I'll answer. It's coming as part of a discussion. Hopefully, I should be able to reach that section. Even if I don't reach this specific question, I'll answer inshallah. Okay. Yeah, so that's a nice question related to discussion as well. How can one benefit spiritually if one is not fasting due to sickness? And it can happen, right? There are many reasons that can come about as a result of which a person is not able to fast. The key is, again, going back to the same adab which I mentioned, those etiquettes. So the person is not able to fast, and he should wish that he it would have been really good for him, he could have fasted, because fasting itself is there to prepare a person to benefit more. But for whatever reason he's not able to fast, sickness, he takes care of those other adab which are there. Quran he can read, he can read du'as, he can be careful of his actions, that he's not committing any haram, review his past life and see if there are anything, any sins in the past that needs tawbah, compensation, hukukun nas. So that was point number one. And also, if he has wealth, he has means of helping others. So these four things definitely can be done, even for those people who are not fasting. So these are the ways to get maximum benefit from this month. Okay, so let me continue because uh, we don't have much time left. Okay, so let me move on to ahkam. Uh, Usually, ahkam is, again, it's not going to be all the ahkam of fasting because we won't have time for that. So, selected important laws. So, One very important thing about ahkam before I begin to say is that um, it's very good idea to be not dependent on anyone for our ahkam, and we should slowly learn to get our ahkam from the source. So you can see the screenshot. I'm sure, I hope everyone can see my screen. I'm assuming that there's no technical issues and everything is going fine. You can see me on your, so my camera is turned on and I'm sharing my screen so I can play the animations inside. So it's easier, it's more interesting. So you can see the screenshot. So this is sistani.org and this is the Tawdiul Masail. Okay. And you can see that is chapter 4 fasting. There are different titles, whatever you need, it's all there. So it's a very good idea that we start learning ourselves. We shouldn't be dependent on a course or a session like this, shouldn't be dependent on, let's say, the local scholar alim. Of course, they are there for you. These courses are there for you and they'll help you. And do attend these courses and do ask your local scholar. But don't be dependent that, let's say, you're not able to attend a course. Or let's say your local scholar is not accessible. You can't get in touch. Go to their website, there's internet. I know there are some technical difficulties in accessing these ahkam, but they can be learned. The way they're organized might not be the best, but you can easily find what you want. So there are so many things like laws of fasting for a traveler. Very good, well and good. It's there. I mean, you just click and you go through a few of them and you find the one you need. So the first thing about ahkam is that we shouldn't be dependent on anyone except on the internet. I mean, you'll have to depend on the internet, otherwise you can't access the site. Of course, if you have the book, the physical copy, then you're even independent from the internet. So that's the first thing. So now let's start with the ahkam. So one of the important things about ahkam is to not confuse ourselves and get that general structure of what's going on about a particular topic, because the ahkam can be a very tiring subject. It can have a lot of details and it can sometimes even be confusing. Why? Because I mean, it's legal structure, right? It's anywhere in the world, legal issues and law is complicated. I mean, it's not something that common people are so comfortable with. No, you go to a lawyer if you face a legal issue. So even in Islam, the Sharia and the Ahkam, it has its own technicalities, and we need to get used to the basic structure. So it's always good idea to go systematically. So what I've tried to do in this presentation is that I'm trying to present it in a systematic manner, so it stays in our mind that what are the different things generally we need to know about the issue of fasting. So fasting, again, I'm not going to cover everything that's listed here. This is just the structure for you to have these things systematic in your mind. So the first thing that they discuss is the definition and types. So what defines a fast and what are different types? Of course, it doesn't concern us too much because we all know what is fasting. I mean, I don't need to define it. And because we're specifically talking about the fasting of the month of Ramadan, the obligatory fasting, right now we are not concerned with going through the other types of fasts. So there are other obligatory fasts, there are mustahab fasts, there are makruh fasts, and there are haram fasts. I mean, all these categories are there. But that's a separate discussion. It doesn't concern us so much right now. So, first discussion in fasting is about definition and types. Okay. The second discussion is that what makes fasting obligatory? What are the conditions? It's not obligatory for every single person. There are conditions. If you satisfy and fit that criteria, you have to fast. If you are outside that criteria, you don't have to fast. So, as simple as that. So, we're going to have a look at the conditions of obligation of fasting, what makes fasting obligation, and then we're going to go through some special groups about which, in some cases, fasting is wajib, in some cases, it's not wajib, or in some of these titles, it's not wajib at all. So we're going to talk about children, what happens to them. It's a question people ask. Travelers, of course, I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover travelers in details. I'll try because it has, I'll come to that. Second is expecting and feeding mothers. Fourth is sick people. I mean, those who have some kind of an ailment and sickness, and the last one is elderly people. So the ahkam for these five groups, there might be some details that we need to know. So that's the second discussion, that what makes fast obligatory, and is it obligatory for me or not? I need to know it clearly. Then the next discussion is, how do we fast? I mean, what do I do in fasting? It's a question you can ask about any of the shari things, that what does it mean to fast. Of course, fasting, the reality of fasting is imsak, not doing certain things from dawn to dusk. That's fasting. So the main discussion that we are going to have in the manner of fasting is what we are not supposed to do, because fasting is literally not doing certain things. It's not telling you to do something. In fact, it's telling you to not do certain things. So those are the mubtilat, those things which break the fast. You're supposed to avoid them: food, drink, and the list is there. And the last discussion, so nine things. So nine things must be avoided for your fast to be valid. And the last discussion that we have is that, what if I miss some fasts? If I'm not able to fast, how it is compensated? So the discussion of qada, fidya, kafara, so all of that comes there. Okay, of course, I'm not going to be able to cover all of this in all its details. So let me at least go and try and do a good portion of it. So I'm going quickly a bit, but I've tried to make it systematic so it's easy for you to follow. So I would request you to have full attention. If you need to grab a coffee or tea or drink a bit of water, I mean, this is the time you can just take a quick break and come, because after this we're going to fasten our seatbelts and we're going to go. So conditions of fasting, okay, with focus on special groups. So that's what we're going to do. So there are three types of conditions in fasting. There are some conditions which are common general conditions which apply to any obligation anyway. So bulug. So someone who's not a baligh, adulthood. I mean, the word is incomplete. So someone who's not baligh, not only fasting, all the obligations are lifted from him. Someone who's not sane, means someone who doesn't have aql, the intelligence, the regular intelligence, then again the ahkam don't apply to him. So fasting, prayers. And the third thing is physical strength. So if there is something, fasting, salat, hajj, anything you imagine, if someone doesn't have power to do it, he can't do it. Of course, it's not wajib on him. Absolutely, he can't do it. Not that it's difficult for him. That's another question which is going to come. So these three conditions are called the general conditions that apply to all the obligations, including fasting. So these three things, I'm going to put them in one package: aql and qudrat. So these three have to be there. So fasting is for baligh people, for people who are aqil, and people who are qadir. They can fast. If someone can't absolutely fast, I mean, of course, it's not wajib. Okay. Now, there are certain other conditions which are specific to fasting. And what are those? One is traveling. So what it means is that a person should not be traveling, then it becomes wajib for him. So actually, if a person is traveling, then fasting is not obligatory on him. I'm just giving you a list here. The details are left for the later slides. I'm just showing you the bigger picture. And the other thing is that purity from haid and nifas for women. So this specifically applies to the women, that a woman who is in the state of haid or nifas, it's not wajib on her fast, or in fact she cannot fast. Her fast would not be valid in that state. So these are two conditions specific to fasting: traveling and or in fact I should say, not traveling and purity from haid. These are specific to fasting. So if someone doesn't have any of these conditions, it's not fast. And then there are certain exceptions that lift the obligation of fasting, and these exceptions apply to fasting and also to other areas. Okay, so I've separated them for a reason. So one of the things that excuse a person from fasting is darar or harm. So if fasting is going to lead to harm or darar, physical harm, different types of harm, monetary harm, then it's not wajib to fast. If fasting is going to cause unbearable difficulty, which in Arabic is called usru haraj, unbearable difficulty is another rule of exception. It person of from fasting because it causes unbearable difficulty. And the third thing is that if fasting comes in conflict with something which is a more important obligation, something which is a more important obligation. I'm just giving an example. This number three is not going to come a lot of discussion. For example, if you fast, it's going to lead to death of a moment. You can't fast. Why? Because saving life of a moment is more important than fasting. In Arabic, it's called tazahum. When there's a conflict between different duties, and fasting is that lesser important duty. You leave the less important for the more important. Okay, but the examples are not much, but it can in some circumstances, especially when there's question of life and death and these kind of things, then you have to leave fasting and then go and see life of a moment, for example. Okay. So the main thing that is going to concern is number one and two, and is going to keep coming again. So even Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah protect him, in his Tawdihul Masail, he mentions these things and then he brings a number of cases under one end, under Dharar and Usru Haraj. So he says that young children who are baligh but they don't need to fast could be because of one of these two reasons. Sick people are not required to fast. It is because of one of two reasons. Either because it's harmful for them to fast, or it leads to unbearable difficulty. Expecting or feeding mothers are exempt from fasting again because of one of these two reasons, or both. Elderly people are exempt from fasting because, again, because of one of these two reasons. And even a person who's not young, who's not sick, is not an expecting or feeding mother, not and he's a regular person, but he fears that if I fast, one of the two would happen. Either I would have to face harm, dharar, or it would cause unbearable I start fasting. Even for such a person, fasting is not obligatory. If he's judging, if he's fearing that in coming future, that's what is going to happen. So keep these two things in mind because it's going to affect a lot of the things that we have. Okay, so before I go into some of the details, I just want to say this here that I mean many people many times it's difficult to know that how do we judge harm, like what classifies as harm. So the fuqaha and the scholars have said that harms or is of two types. So sometimes we have something which is called extreme or considerable harm, something like death, something like losing your limbs, or extreme physical loss, considerable financial loss, considerable loss of honor. So these are called extreme harms or considerable harms. But there are other types of harms which are not extreme. It's not a question of life and death. It's not a question of losing your limbs or your body parts. But it's a harm which regular people are not ready to bear. There's a mistake in the PPT, are not ready to bear. So there are harms. So, for example, extreme harm would mean that you lose 60-70% of your wealth. That's extreme harm. That's big financial loss. But regular people wouldn't even be happy with losing, in one instance, 10% of your wealth. So that's considered harm as well. So this is sufficient to take away obligation of fasting, harm or dharar. Okay. How do we go about it? It's based on your personal judgment. So it becomes very individual. So I have to see for myself that is fasting going to harm me? Okay, it's my judgment. Of course, the judgment should be based on rational and acceptable grounds. It's not that a person who has waswas and a small thing he says, "Oh, it's harmful for me." There are people, unfortunately, who don't base their judgments on rational grounds. No, on rational grounds, I'm judging that. For example, I have had this sickness last year, and I know that if I fast this year, I'm fine right now. I'm not sick, but if I'm going to fast, then it gives me that fear that I'm going to suffer. It's going to lead to bodily harm to me. It's not obligatory to fast. What about opinion of experts? So a doctor comes and says that if you fast because you have a certain condition like this, it's harmful for you. It's a darar for you. What the fuqaha says is that if opinion of expert leads to certainty and creates that fear, yes, I mean it has value. But let's say doctor tells you something, but you know yourself, and it doesn't lead you to certainty about this going to lead you to harm. So in that case, opinion of expert is not the criteria. The criteria is that does it lead you to certainty? Do you believe that it's harmful for you or not? Yes, you can go to doctors, speak, the final judgment is going to be yours. And the same rule, which you can see on the screen, applies to unbearable difficulty. You have to judge yourself. I mean, I have to judge myself that if I fast, am I going to undergo unbearable difficulty or not? So again, the same rule applies. So now there's this interesting question, and that is that let us say I had the fear that if I fast, it's going to harm me, but still I go and fast. It's possible, right? I fear harm and I go and fast. What happens? So here there's a difference in fatwa between Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei. May Allah protect our Maraje and our scholars. So Ayatollah Khamenei says that if there is harm, then it's a sin and the fast is invalid. So if the harm actually occurs, so I knew that possibly it could harm me, I said it doesn't matter, let me fast. I start fasting and that harm actually happens to me. Ayatollah Khamenei says that this fast was a sin and the fast is batil. Ayatollah Sistani says that no, only if the harm is extreme, only if those, I gave some examples, if it leads to extreme harm, then this act was a sin and the fast is invalid. Of course, there's no need to go and do this, that if there is fear of harm, Allah has given us exemption. We don't need to force ourselves and be like they say, more pious than the Pope. Okay, but if I take the risk and I go and fast and it turns out to be okay, then the fast is valid. So this is one scenario that we can look at. Of course, I want to say this here that in the ahkam section, I really benefited and took help from the slides that were presented in the previous years by Sheikh Salim Yusuf Ali. So a lot of the content and the slides were there, so I got a chance to adapt it according to my own sequence. So we reach. So what I've just been able to do is that um, I've just explained the basic conditions of fasting which are there. So now I'm going to continue with my discussion. My only worry is that there's a lot that needs to be covered. So I have two discussions. So one discussion is about these different groups. So you can see about Balig, what happens, sick people, expecting and feeding mothers, elderly people, how their fast works. So I have all these special groups and they have special laws that define should they fast, should they not fast, is there going to be qada or fidya or not. All those details are here. But then I have another portion in my presentation which talks about the manner of fasting. So we go through some of the rules about eating and drinking, and then the different things that are there, the sexual matters that are related to the fasting thing, some things to do with medicine. So I'm slightly confused because I just had 20 minutes and this is a lot to cover. So I don't know which part should I do, or you prefer that I just select a few parts from both and just get it done. Any suggestions that you would like to give? Because I just have 20 minutes and I'll need to finish. So one part, so let me make it clear. One part is about these special groups. What happens to people who have just become Balik, sick people, traveling people, and so the list you saw. And one part is about the actual how do we fast. That if it becomes clear that I have to fast, what are the things that I need to stay away, and some important ahkam. So any preference that you people have, or I just choose anything you would like, anyone would like to say? Okay. Okay, so let me pick and choose. So I'm choosing one or two from these special groups because there's a request. Yeah, the Balik children. So I'm going to choose these which are important, and some I'll. Okay. So let me begin. So without like wasting more time. Okay. So let me. Yeah, because it's a relevant question that many people have. What about let me make my full screen. Okay, so Balik. So this question comes, and many people have that. According to the Shariat and the fatwa of the most of the Maraje, the girls become Balik at the age of 9, and the boys become at the age of 15. So the question is that it might happen that a girl who's reached age of 9, she's too young to fast. Now, how do we deal with that situation? So before I mention the ahkam, I just want to mention this that we need to approach the issue of our children and ahkam with the right attitude. And the right attitude is that we need to be preparing them from before. And we have many riwayat about how we should be training our children to pray and fasting. So we have riwayat which say that start getting them used to fasting from the age of 7. So at the age of 7, like let them fast for a few hours till afternoon. If they are feeling too hungry, let them do iftar. So we know this that especially in today's environment, especially those people who have young children, that this responsibility with the toxic environment that's surrounding you, this responsibility is a great responsibility of bringing pious children up, and that needs a bit of investment and being a bit smart and having right strategies to deal with it. So the first thing to say, look at this from a positive aspect. So unfortunately sometimes people, not many, inshallah none of us, but I have seen people who look at say that, oh, why Allah wants to make things hard for us, 9-year-old girl, she's so young, Allah wants to put people in difficulties. No, that's not the case. Why do you approach it from such a negative view? No, look at the positive side. I mean, Allah has given this young girl distinction of being able to worship him officially. It's a distinction, and it's a distinction for a girl that Allah considered her mature enough to give her this distinction at the age of 9. Allah has left the boys. Why? Because the boys are, I mean, those are children, they know that boys in terms of their maturity, I mean, they are in their own world. So Allah said that this he is not ready, let him wait till 15. I am not going to give him audience till the age of 15. Look at the brighter side. In fact, some of our great ulama, if I remember correctly, Muqaddas Ardabeli, when, or one of the other great ulama, I might confuse the name. So when he became Balig, he had a jashan, he had a celebration saying that today is the day when Allah is officially accepting me as his servant. Before this, all my ibadat were like unofficial, like it wasn't needed, even if you didn't do it. So there is a brighter side to this. But yes, we can face a situation where, especially in today's world, again, it depends on a lot of factors, geographical factors, genetic factors, and therefore Allah has made rules and He has given the exceptions to that rule. So, what happens if fasting is going to cause extreme difficulty for the Balik child? Okay, so this is the algorithm, it's very simple. If it's going to cause extreme difficulty, then the Balik child can only eat and drink the amount that is necessary. So again, it's only for extreme difficulty I'm speaking. I'm not talking about dharar. Harm has a separate hook. So if it's to do with extreme difficulty, it's unbearable. It's not going to harm her, the girl, but it's going to be very difficult for her to fast. What does she do? Let her drink the amount necessary. So let her start her fast. See, maybe at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, she says that no, I can't bear it. Okay, let her eat a bit. Then let her stay without eating and the other things. And then whenever she feels necessary and it doesn't cause extreme hardship, she can, of course, the fast, it's not a fast, it's batil. Therefore, the qada must. But if it doesn't lead to extreme difficulty, if it leads to a bit of difficulty, it's okay. It's okay in the sense that, of course, don't we shouldn't be forcing our children. If she's finding it hard, that extreme difficulty, she says that I can't do it, it's fine. Let her not do it. But she says that I will do it, but she feels a bit difficulty. No, we should be encouraging her that, yeah, you can do it, you can complete it, and definitely, harder the fast, the reward is higher. We have narrations which says that al sawmu fil har jihadun fi sabilillah. If someone fasts in hot weather, the reward or the value of that fast is equal to jihad fi sabilillah, fighting in the way of Allah. Fighting in the way of Allah is very difficult, so that's the reward. And not fasting is okay if it's not extremely difficult. Yeah, it's a bit difficult. She can fast, but if deliberately the fast is left out, it's considered a sin and it has kafara. The kafara has to be given. So this is the algorithm for the Balik children. And the same algorithm applies to some other situations. So there are some people who have difficult occupations, difficult jobs, such that it causes extreme difficulty. Someone has a very heavy job to do. He can't leave the job and sit at home. He needs to feed. I mean, it's his need. He needs to go to work, and his work is such that it leads to extreme difficulty if he's going to fast. For such a person, same algorithm applies. He needs, eats whatever is necessary, the rest he leaves out. Or the same rule applies for long fasts. And this is a question that comes up now and again, that in some areas, especially in the northern Europe, closer to the poles, in some seasons the fasts are very long. How do we deal with it? Simple. I mean, the Sharia has given the solution is that if even for an adult, so this is not just about children, even for an adult, fasting for a very long duration is unbearable difficulty. He fasts as much as he can, and then as soon as he starts feeling that, oh no, I can't do more than this, so he does iftar, and then he does qada later on. So that's the fatwa of Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei both. So this was about the Balik children, and I've tried to, yeah, so try to give the simple way of going through this thing. So I'm just going to cover now sick people. There's not much detail. You can go through the details that are there. It's very similar. Okay. Expecting and feeding mothers, again, the same rule applies that if she fears that it's going to harm the child, then fasting is not obligatory. So mark this important difference that unbearable difficulty usually leads to a person. The hukm is that you fast as much as you can. You can't just from the morning start eating. No. But if it's the question of harm, darar, then from the beginning, you don't have to do anything. So, expecting mother, she says that if I'm going to fast, it's going to harm the child. She doesn't have to fast at all. Of course, there are ahkam about qada and fidya, you can see on the screen. In the same manner, feeding mother says that if I'm feeding, and if I'm going to fast, then it's going to affect the child's health and the body. Okay, she doesn't have to fast. Of course, there's this thing which Ihtiyat Wajib Ayatollah Sistani says that if there is an alternative method to feeding, then he says Ihtiyat Wajib is that the mother switches to the alternative method, which can be formula or other things. Of course, I would say that if such a situation is there, then you should consult a scholar to work out the details. Okay, elderly people. Now, there are some specific rules. It's very simple. So, for elderly people, there are two situations that might possibly arise. Okay, so let me show this. It's not going to take much. So, one situation is that they're elderly people, elderly in the common view. Either it's difficult for them to fast. If it's difficult for them to fast, then they're exempted from fasting, and but they have to give fidya, and there's no qada. They don't have to repeat it. But if it's impossible to fast, they're so weak and frail that not only it's difficult, they cannot fast at all. For example, an elderly person who's bedridden, that person cannot fast. In such case, not only they're exempted, there's no fidya as well. And of course, there's no qada to be performed. Only the exception is that according to Ayatollah Khamenei, if this elderly person regains ability to fast, then he says that it's ihtiyat wajib to make up for the fast. But Ayatollah Sistani says that no, even if this elderly person later on gains the ability to fast, he doesn't have to fast. So this is a special like concession for the elderly people. If it's difficult to, in both cases, difficult or impossible, they don't have to fast. There's no qada. But if it was for the reason that it was difficult for them to fast, they have to give fidya. which the specific rules are there that one mutta'am has to be given. Of course, I'm not giving the details of fidya because there's no time. I mean, you can refer for that in the book. So these were the few. I gave you a bit of glimpses from these different groups that we have. So you can see my screen, there are different sick people, and that, of course, I wasn't able to add the travelers thing because it was quite long, because talking about people who are traveling, there are so many details there. But there are slides from the previous sessions of Sheikh Salim where you can find all the details. And of course, we know the basic things that if anyone is traveling in a manner that leads him to pray qasr namaz, then that person cannot fast. So that's like the one line answer to the traveling thing. Of course, there are details, a lot of frequent travelers, what happens. And these traveling ahkam, most of them are common between fasting and salat. So the salat becomes qasr, and that person cannot fast, which means that it's invalid. I mean, there's no point fasting because it's not going to be counted. And of course, he has to do qada of those fasts which is missed because of traveling. Okay, so the Sheikh Salim's slides can be accessed from, I'll send the link. It's there on the Academy of Islam website. These are previous year courses. I'll send the link so you can access, download it from there. Okay, so very little time I have. Let me go through some of the important ahkam that we have regarding the manner of fasting. It's very important, right? Because fasting is imsak and controlling it. So fasting refraining from nine things from Fajr till Maghrib. So this is the list. Of course, the order is not important. I mean, food and drink, liquid enema, vomiting, spousal relationship, immersing head under water, swallowing thick dust and smoke, istimna, remaining in janaba after Fajr, and lying about Allah and His Prophet. So these nine things are which we need to stay away from. And if any of this thing is not, we don't stay away from, the fast becomes bad. Of course, all of this cannot be covered here. So I'm going to choose some things which are more relevant, more frequently occurring, and I'll also include those parts which are there as part of the question. So I have a few minutes. I think I can go through the important parts, inshallah. And then we'll finish, and then those people who have questions can stay a bit longer. So inshallah, I'll try and finish on time. Okay, so eating and drinking, most of you know what it means. I'm just going to point out to some important things. One is that your fast breaks if something is deliberately swallowed. Okay, so if I know that there's something stuck in my teeth, and if I don't clean it, it's definitely going to go inside, then I need to clean. If I know that it's going to go in. So something has to be deliberately swallowed, and it has to be from outside. So saliva is okay. There's a slide about coughing and the thing that comes from that. So I'm going to do that. So saliva is in your mouth. It's not something from outside. You can swallow it. There's no problem. Deliberately swallowing something from outside, and of course through the mouth. If food is injected through other means, then that has a different story. So this is like get something going inside your body from your mouth, something which is from outside. Okay. Now, one common question that comes is that what about so coughing and these kind of things? It leads to mucus for it. There's mucus and it can come out. So, what do we do with that? Okay, very simple. I mean, I'm going to show you the algorithm. That the question is, does it come to your mouth? Yes or no? So, there's this mucus, and as a result of coughing, it comes out and it comes in the mouth. What needs to be done? Ayatollah Sistani says that it's better not to swallow, which means it's okay if you swallow, but it's better. So it's kind of ihtiyat mustahab. But Ayatollah Khamenei says that no, it's ihtiyat wajib to not swallow. That means a person should spit it out, shouldn't swallow it. And if it's deliberately swallowed, then there's qada and kafara. It's like deliberately breaking the fast. According to Ayatollah Khamenei, according to Ayatollah Sistani, it's fine. It's better not to swallow, but it doesn't invalidate the fast. But no, it's not come in the mouth. As a result of coughing, it's still there inside in the throat part. Then it's okay to swallow. I mean, it hasn't come to the mouth, so that's fine. So this is a very brief point. Okay. Can I rinse my mouth with water when fasting? Yes, as long as you don't swallow. Makruh to do so without a valid purpose. Recommended to spit out 3 times after rinsing, and in some cases, okay, which we're not going to discuss, that if I am rinsing my mouth and I swallow it deliberately, it leads to qada and there are consequences. consequences. So this is a brief thing. Can I clean my teeth? Yes, brushing with toothpaste, floss, flavored floss is fine. We need to be just careful that nothing is swallowed deliberately. Okay. Of course, using a wet toothbrush or stick is makruh. Why? Again, because there's higher possibility of swallowing. And according to some people, using a dry brush is mustahab. Just using the dry brush. So these are some things to do with food substance. So now, okay. So I think I'll cover this part to the things to do with istimna and janabat. Why? Because they occur more. And then the other parts, which are can I take medicine? It's straightforward. You can refer to slides and it should be clear. So it will discuss medicines, eye drops, not nose drops, injections, vomiting. Of course, it's not very commonly occurring, but there's some simple things that we need to know that deliberate vomiting may breaks the fast. Inhaling dust and thick smoke, there are some points that you can go through. Submerging head in water, yeah. And then there are some other additional things in this presentation. They are not of the wajibat. So some of the things that it's better to avoid. So I have very little time. I'm just quickly going to run you through this part about the matters related to the spousal relationship, istimna, etc. So quickly, okay. These things break the fast as well. First thing is sexual intercourse. And of course, any kind of sexual relationship that leads to something else that would cause the fast to break is also not allowed as well. But if it doesn't lead to the actual intercourse and the other acts are performed and it doesn't even lead to other things that invalidate the fast, like ejaculation or istimna, then it's fine. Uh, but this thing is going to invalidate the fast. The second thing that invalidates the fast, it makes it batil, and there is kafara for it because it's done deliberately. Of course, if it's done deliberately, there is kafara for it, quite a heavy one. That is istimna, which means any deliberate act that causes the discharge of semen. So that is the second thing. And third thing is intentionally remaining in the state of janaba and add to that haid or nifas till fajr. Okay, so these are the three things. Again, these are all put them together because they relate to one aspect of our life. So quickly, some of the things. Okay, so the first two things is, I mean, the basic hook is clear that these two things invalidate the fast. If there are any specific questions, of course, if it's done deliberately, if someone forgets, there are some details which can be left for another time. So I'm just going to. I have how many minutes? I have 2 minutes. So I'm going to just quickly talk about this remaining in state of janaba because some of the questions were related to that as well. Okay, what if I enter the state of janaba at night? What happens? So a person enters the state of janaba at night. Deliberately staying in this state until fajr time invalidates my fast. So person is in state of janaba, he delays it, doesn't do ghusl, doesn't come out of this state, and fajr happens, fast is invalid. Let us say that the state of janaba happens in a manner that there's not enough time for ghusl before fajr. So what happens? You do tayammum in place of ghusl. Okay. So you do tayammum in place of ghusl. Then you do ghusl as well. So the fajr will happen. So this person, he does tayammum. Now it's fajr time. This person goes and does ghusl, and then after doing ghusl, he prays. Okay. Of course, this is, yeah. If there wasn't enough time left because of a valid reason, of course, if it was for an invalid reason, then the fast is batil. Okay, so that keep in mind that if someone delays it till the fajr happens, then the fast is batil. But for a valid reason, it was delayed and there's little time left and a person can't do ghusl, he has to do tayammum, it's mustahab to do qada, it's not wajib. Okay. And if a person doesn't do ghusl or tayammum, whichever is his duty, then the fast is batil and there is like qada and kafara as well. So this is the basic rule about uh, not staying in state of janaba till at night. Okay. Some more details. For a woman who becomes clean from haid or nifas at night, okay, she needs to perform the ghusl before fajr or tayammum if there's not enough time to perform the ghusl. So the same thing applies. Yes, there's other thing that this is a bit separate is that if haid and nifas starts before maghrib, so it's the other way, not becoming clean. So a woman starts fasting and before maghrib haid or nifas starts, then automatically the fast of that day is invalid and qada is needed. And the last thing I come to, and some of the questions were related to this, is that about sleeping and janaba and different things. So I'm just going to talk about two things quickly. Can I go to sleep at night after entering the state of janaba? So a person enters the state of janaba. He doesn't want to bath, do ghusl right now. He wants to sleep and then wake up and then take bath. So what happens? So the ruling is this: yes, you can go to sleep. If I'm intending to wake up before Fajr to do ghusl and I'm confident about waking up. So a person, 12 o'clock at night, he becomes junub. He's in state of janaba. And now he says that I don't want to do ghusl right now, but I'll sleep right now. I intend to wake up and I'm confident that I'll wake up. I'll put alarm. I'm not a heavy sleeper. I know that I can wake up. So, in such a situation, if that person ends up oversleeping and wakes up after Fajr, there's no problem, there's no qada, and his fast is fine. So he deliberately slept. He knew he was confident he could wake up, but he just overslept without intention. There's no qada, and he wakes up after Fajr, he does ghusl, and the fast is valid for that day. But if he wakes up before Fajr and he sleeps once again, so 12 o'clock he slept, he woke up at 3 a.m. and he was supposed to do ghusl. He said that let me sleep a bit more. He oversleeps, then the fast becomes qada. So he has to do qada. So he has to do the fast of that day as well. It doesn't mean that that day's fast he shouldn't do. He should complete that day's fast. I mean, he woke up after Fajr, sleeping second time, he should do qada. Okay. Otherwise, if a person is not confident, okay, otherwise, if I sleep without intending to wake up before Fajr to perform ghusl, and I sleep past Fajr, I have to do qada and pay kafara. So this is there that I don't intend to wake up. This person is in state of janaba, he doesn't intend to wake up, just goes to sleep. Or he's confident that he's not going to wake up and he sleeps and he wakes up after Fajr. He has to fast that day, he has to do qada and he has to pay kafara as well. And the last thing, and some of the questions were related to this, that what if a person enters state of janaba in sleep? So the question was there, there's a boy, 12, 13-year old, without having any thoughts of arousal, he had janaba. He had, yeah. So in this, and if it happens at night, now there are two situations. If I wake up before Fajr, I have to do ghusl. So this person, of course, if he's not baligh, of course, this is going to make him baligh. So if this person wakes up before Fajr, he has to do ghusl, and the same rule applies. He can go back to sleep if he intends to wake up again. Okay. And the same thing which was mentioned that if someone oversleeps, Ayatollah Sistani says that if a person says he has to do qada, Ayatollah Khamenei says that if he wakes up again and the second time he oversleeps, then he has to do qada. But if a person in the state of sleep enters janaba and wakes up after Fajr, then his fast is intact. So this is at night. What if a person enters state of janaba in sleep after Fajr? So he woke up for Sahri, he did his Sahri, he prayed his Fajr prayers, he sleeps after that sleep which started after Fajr. This person becomes muhtalim, he becomes junub in sleep, then the fast is intact, nothing needs to be done. So entering janaba in the state of sleeping is similar to the previous slide, that what happens, a person has to do ghusl, he can go to sleep once, and that is there. So that with that, inshallah, I've tried to answer at least those main questions that were asked. My time is up. I've exceeded my time by 5 minutes. So yeah. So I'll look at the comments. So let me end it officially here. I really thank you everyone for your time and for attending. And inshallah, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq to enter this month of Ramadan with full preparation. We are mentally prepared, we are preparing our children, and inshallah, we keep in mind both the ahkam and the adab. And the adab are more important in certain ways, that we are very careful of how we conduct ourselves during this month. So, inshallah, With this, we end. If there, I'm seeing some questions on, so I'll just follow the discussion that's been going on, and if there's some answers I need to give, uh, I can give. Inshallah, I'll share the link to Sheikh Salim's PowerPoint as well. And this PowerPoint also will be shared on the website soon, inshallah. So you should be able to have a look at it. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.